So, a few days ago we had Easter, and Easter's always an amazing time because there's a line of demarcation there that we see in the Bible where everything changes, right? Easter and what we celebrate, the resurrection that we celebrate, is it's a point that makes Christianity two things, both possible and necessary. So I want to talk about that a little bit, but when we think about how many different possibilities there could be for the identity of Jesus, who he actually was, and a long time ago, a guy named Watchman Nee, 1936, he wrote a book, Normal Christian Faith, where he talks about this idea that if you explore every possible outcome for the identity of Jesus, there are a limited number. And once you take each of them down to the end of the road, the only one that can be left is the one where he is Lord, where he winds up being Lord. All of that based on the resurrection. Now, roll that forward to 1952. C.S. Lewis writes in Mere Christianity, he writes these words. He says, "I'm trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God." That's in quotes. "That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on a level with the man who says he is a poached egg." C.S. Lewis always had a way of saying things. "Or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman, or something worse." All right, so let's see. And then one last line. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and call him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. So that was C.S. Lewis' take on it. This idea of C.S. Lewis with the phrase the Jesus trilemma. It had to be one of those things: Lord, liar, or lunatic. 1977, Josh McDowell comes along, writes this little book. I've got a couple copies on my shelf. And he devotes an entire chapter, if you didn't see it, More Than a Carpenter. He devotes an entire chapter where he refers to these three things, the trilemma there, of Lord, liar, or lunatic. I've heard a fourth added to that. I had a professor in college who added a fourth to it. He said legend. So those are the only options that Jesus could be: legend, liar, lunatic, or Lord. All right, we'll start with legend. That's the easiest one to get rid of. There is a plethora of non-Christian sources, Jewish sources like Josephus, or various Roman sources, secular sources of the time, that state unequivocally that Jesus of Nazareth existed. Now, did they worship him? No, but he existed. So the idea of legend, the fact that the manhood of Jesus is simply made up, that's an impossibility. There are too many non-Christian sources to say otherwise. So legend is out. Liar and lunatic really are two different paths that get you to the same point. Both of them are saying the same thing. The only difference is the state of mind of Jesus in the circumstance. So if Jesus was in his right mind and said the things he said, made the claims he made, in his right mind, knowing full well they were false, then he's a liar. If Jesus made those same claims not in his right mind, not knowing that they were false, then he's lunatic. Liar and lunatic, they both wind up in the same spot, him being wrong and the claims being wrong. The final option has to be Lord. Now, we understand that final one. We've accept that final one. But where is the line of demarcation between liar and lunatic, which is really two heads of the same coin, and Lord. It all comes down to Easter. It's that resurrection moment. Because if there is no Easter, if there is no resurrection, then you get to choose between liar and lunatic, and we can spend the rest of our days debating which one of those two he was. But if the resurrection happened, then he has to be Lord. That's the only option that's on that side. So how do we decide between the two? Well, there's a million ways to do this, and the whole concept of apologetics revolves around the idea of proving or giving evidences, at least, to these various options. I think one of the best ones is to look at how the disciples reacted before and after, which falls right in line with the Lord, liar, lunatic trilemma. Before, they were frightened. They were scared. The Gospels refer to the apostles during that period from Friday until Sunday morning. They were frightened. They were hiding because they knew the same people that killed Jesus very likely could come kill them. So they were in hiding. After the resurrection, after Jesus meets with them, after Jesus ascends, what do? We don't see them hiding ever again. They go out. They're extremely bold. They're bold to the point of death. Whereas before the resurrection, they tried to hide from death. Whereas after the resurrection, they accepted death. They invited death, knowing full well that what they were teaching was going to get them killed. So, the resurrection for them was everything. And evidences to us is by how they acted before and after. If the resurrection never happened, if liar and lunatic, if one of those is the outcome, they would not have acted the way they did. If it's liar, then they would have had to be in on the lie. If they're in on the lie, why in the world do they all sacrifice themselves as well? That makes no sense. If it's lunatic, then they would have seen the lunacy for what it was, and he would still be in the grave, and they would have abandoned it, them not being lunatics. So the fact that they carried forward the way they did, Lord was the only possible option. So, like I said, we're a few days now removed from Easter, but I think that's one of the most wonderful things about Easter is we get to look at that Jesus trilemma. And when it all shakes out, when it all focuses on one of those options, we really have nothing left but Lord. Everyone have a good day. We'll talk to you later.